joining us in the ICICLE NSFAI Institute seminar series. Just to give a very short introduction for him, Dr. Wesley Brewer is a senior research scientist and acting group leader of the Workflows and Ecosystem Services Group within the National Center for Computational Sciences at Oak Ridge National Lab. And his research interest lies at the intersection of HPC, numerical simulation, especially focusing on fluid dynamics, population genetics, and digital twins of HPC systems, and also scalable AI for science. He holds an MS in ocean engineering from MIT and a PhD in computational engineering from Mississippi State University. His honors include the 2019 DoD HPCMP Hero Award for Technical Excellence, the 2025 UT Patel Distinguished Innovation Award, a 2025 R&D 100 Awards, and a Fulbright Spec appointment in the computer science. So today he will be talking to us on the data readiness for scientific AI. So let's give a big welcome to him, and we look forward to his talk.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Panda, and appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with you all today. So I'm going to be talking about something that we've been working on. It's getting close to about 2 years now, and I work at the uh, National Center for Computational Sciences, which is a division within Oak Ridge National Labs. And it houses the Oak Ridge Leadership Computing Facility, OLCF. And our mission is to provide world-class computational resources and specialized services for the most computationally intensive global challenges. And so we have delivered a string of number one supercomputers from going back to Jaguar in 2009 to Frontier, and then we're working on the installation of OLCS 6, it's called Discovery, and it's anticipated in 2028. And these resources it's a DOE resource where anybody in the world can write proposals and get time on our machines. And we do have like small, like what's called director's discretionary allocation proposals, which are just like two-page proposals where you can get like 10,000 hours on node hours on our machine. So it's pretty straightforward to get some time. Our big allocations are like 1 million+ hours, and those are quite competitive. And those are called either insight proposals, which we actually are going on right now. And we also have ALCC proposals. So as was mentioned, I'm currently the acting group lead for the Workflows and Ecosystem Services Group, which just happens to have the acronym WES, which is convenient for me. The WES group researches, develops, and deploys scalable workflow and data technologies that advance the National Center for Computational Sciences missions, empowering researchers to harness distributed computing and data ecosystems across the OLCF, the American Science Cloud, and the Genesis mission platform. So I'm sure you probably all heard of the Genesis mission initiative. Our group is very much involved in that, and our group and our section in developing the American Science Cloud, which is the platform underlying the Genesis mission. And we're a small but growing group. So here we have 8 people in our group at the moment, and we're getting ready to grow. Have about 3 more people coming online this summer. So this is not that recent of a statistic, but this is the most recent that I could find in a publication, and it shows the AI/ML usage between 2019 to 2022. The point being that across all areas of science, and these are basically analyzing projects that are running on our leadership computing facility, basically across all areas of science, AI/ML is becoming active in the in these spaces. This is only, as you can imagine, this has only increased over the years. So a large the allocations, we still do some traditional modeling and simulation. I mean, there's still people that are doing that, but more and more workflows are involving AI at some level. And um, we have a survey paper, actually, hopefully be published in ACM Computing Surveys this year. That's where we analyze all the different what we call execution motifs, the ways that AI can be used together along with HPC simulations for doing solving different kinds of problems. So, for example, one of these we call digital replica, but it's essentially the digital twin motif, where uh, you may have a simulation that's interacting with an AI and that kind of thing. But AI can also be used for steering simulations and inverse design and all these kinds of things. So because of this, there's more and more um, motivation to be able to study data readiness for AI. And our main motivation for studying data readiness is that practitioners spend 70 to 80% of project time on preparing data to train AI. This is my personal experience, but you can also see this kind of statistic uh, mentioned in multiple papers. And that's the first motivation. So you'll get a project and you end up spending most of the time just trying to get the data into a form where you can use it to train an AI. A second motivation is that data sets lack standardized preprocessing pipelines, and this has implications for both reproducibility and performance. So just earlier this year, the timing was interesting for this is the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine put out a report called the Frontiers of Statistics in Science and Engineering. And one of the things they mention in that report is that statistical tasks that are ripe for AI acceleration are those that are manual or human intensive, including various aspects of data preparation and cleaning, such as looking for outliers, checking for internal consistency, reformatting, regridding, or resampling. And so it's the right time to be looking at this problem. Uh, when we got into it, as surprised that, as you'll see, of some of the performance implications that haven't really been studied yet. So when we talk about AI ready data, you probably get a different definition depending on who you ask. And it seems to change depending on the industry, depending on the domain of science. And so, um, you know, here's a definition from IBM: AI ready data is high quality, accessible, and trusted information that organizations can confidently use for AI training and initiatives. This is from the Bridge to AI initiative, and which is in the biomedical areas. AI readiness implies that data must be fair, provenance as fully as feasible, characterized in depth, pre-model, explainable, ethical, sustainable, and computable. I thought this one was kind of interesting because they put fair on the front end and computable on the back end. And our definition is almost the exact inverse of this. We put computable on the front end and fair on the back end. This is the NOAA definition from some people in NOAA. Making data AI ready means providing documentation in the form of sample code and visualizations as an on-ramp for researchers to start working with unfamiliar data. I think you're probably familiar with this one. This one comes out of Ohio State. Data readiness for AI spans quality, accessibility, ethics, and infrastructure, offering a broad conceptual foundation across communities. And our current working definition is we define AI-ready data as machine-readable data sets that have undergone domain-appropriate cleaning, validation, and feature engineering, and B, include sufficient metadata to support reproducible model training and evaluation. So the goals we have for the work that we've been doing, it started out with four main goals, and it extended to a fifth one. So first was to develop a cross-domain taxonomy for AI-ready data. So how do we, uh, given some data, how do we assess its AI readiness? Two, understanding maturity levels and processing stages. So if we have some data and we want to make this data AI ready, what's the process of getting from the raw state of the data to AI ready data? Three, provide scalable, reproducible guidance for leadership computing facilities. I would say this is the sort of the overarching goal for what we do is we want to be able to help our users uh, provide guidance to them on how to more efficiently work on our systems. And four is to develop a framework that can automate the pipeline transformation process to make data AI ready. And this is what we've been most recently working on. And a new one came on our plate recently, and this is to develop an AI data factory, which I'll just briefly mention at the end what we're doing in that space. So if you look at the tools that are available for uh, AI readiness type tools, actually Adrian comes out of Ohio State, Sharon Bina and uh, other folks also with John Lucabez at Lawrence Berkeley. Um, there you can generally divide these into either domain agnostic type tools that work across different types of scientific domains versus domain specific tools which are designed to work for specific scientific domains. In the domain agnostic tools, many of these focus on the data quality. So assessing uh, the state of our data readiness and that. And there are some tools on the domain specific side that are helpful for actually making data AI ready. Um, what our work is doing is looking in the how can we make tools that can help to make data AI ready, but also that work across domains. So it's a little bit of a unique space or niche area, and I would say the closest to what we've been doing is that's available is something called Physics Nemo Curator, which is by NVIDIA. Although this is mainly this particular tool is mainly focused on like extract, transform, load of like computational engineering, like CFD, computational fluid dynamics data sets. So it has very limited applicability and very limited support for only a narrow range of domains. We're developing a tool like this, which has a much broader reach and works across different domains. So our starting point was, and what I was asked a couple years ago was to look at four different areas of science: climate, fusion, biohealth, and materials, and evaluate AI readiness on these domains. These domains were selected because, one, they represent strategic priorities within DOE leadership computing facilities. Two, they cover diverse data modalities and preprocessing requirements. And three, they uniquely demonstrate AI readiness challenges and opportunities. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we've been primarily focused on understanding the preprocessing pipelines for data readiness. So when we started, I just started looking at, in general, if you're going to train an AI, what are the steps involved? And this is just based on my experience in the past on developing a number of different AI models. And so generally you start with some kind of raw data collection, and you can have different kinds of data modalities, images, text, audio, and static. This is for like general AI development, not necessarily talking specifically about like scientific domains at this point. Then there's generally some like data cleaning and pre-processing step. So handle missing values, normalize, standardize values, deal with categorical variables, ensure consistency in units, etc. You may have a data augmentation step where if you don't have a number enough samples in a specific class, you may be able to generate new samples from existing samples by doing things like rotating images, adding noise, things like that. And then there may be a data annotation and labeling step. So if the data is not annotated, then you may have to go through and do some data annotation. And there's this thing called pseudo labeling where it sort of automates the process of labeling your data set. Then a data formatting, structuring, partitioning, and export step. Oops. Um, and finally, a quality assurance step. Check the data integrity and completeness, verify schema, etc. And this is an iterative process. So we first started uh, our understanding of data readiness. This was our sort of early understanding of data readiness. And then we said, okay, from this, can we simplify this out to like um, a way to develop like maturity levels. So we came up with these five maturity levels. These are states that your data would be in: raw, cleaned, labeled, featureized, and ready. Um, the idea is that we could uh, take this taxonomy and or categorization method, and we could, given a data set, we could sort of assess where it was. So we initially took this kind of approach, and then we started looking at applying it to data sets. And surprisingly, most of the data sets we looked at were already in ready state, which was not that interesting. And the reason is because when you start asking around people that are doing AI on our supercomputers for data, generally, they've already gone through the hard process of making the data AI ready, and it doesn't make sense to like distribute all the raw data, which is usually much larger and hard to work with and that kind of thing. Um, so at some point, this kind of categorization method kind of it wasn't very effective for us. So we started looking at a sort of attacking this a different way. So we started like just say, let's look at four different domains and let's try to understand what's involved in getting each of these domains to an AI ready state. So, for example, in climate science, you may do some uniform regridding or bilinear interpolation to get all the various files to the same or the various grids onto the same grid and temporal alignment. So these may be used to train like Earth system foundation models. For fusion energy, uh, like in the D3D reactor, they do these shots of where they will have fusion for just a few seconds at a time, and then you get all this data and you want to like train a foundation model or some kind of surrogate model or something or a disruption prediction model. You have to do shot level normalization across all the shots and time window alignment, things like that. For proteomics, I thought I changed it. This is I meant to put this as life sciences, but let's say in general in life sciences you do some sort of sequence encoding, privacy preserving transformation, and cross-modal fusion for genomic and clinical foundation models. And for material science, you're uh, generally parsing like densional functional theory outputs into structural descriptors for graph neural network training. And so for each of these, we could go through, take a project like for climate science, we looked at Climate X foundation model training. We can find their pre-processing scripts, so we can go through and see exactly what they're doing and basically just summarize them. And so we can just create these sort of simplified pre-processing pipelines, like for climate science, it's download, regrid, normalize, and shard. And I highlight the one in red here, which was unique to this domain. For fusion energy, it was extract, align, normalize, and shard. For proteomics or for life sciences, is encode, anonymize, fusion, shard. And for material science, it's parse, normalize, encode into graph structures, and shard. And so then we took these and say, okay, can we come up with sort of an abstracted pattern that works across these different scientific domains? So if we abstract that, basically we can get this uh, canonical preprocessing pattern, which is ingest, preprocess, transform, structure, output. And then depending on the type of domain, it may have need to do several of these, one or more of these specific functions within this. And so this is what we call our the IPTSO preprocessing pipeline. And this became sort of the foundations for thinking about, can we develop a framework that works across multiple scientific domains? And so from everything we've discussed so far, we recently published this in a paper in AI Magazine. It's in March 7th. Data readiness pipeline patterns for scientific AI at scale, insights from climate fusion, life sciences, and materials. From here, we started the development of Ready, and Ready stands for the Readiness Engine for Data Integration. It's um, it's a framework for making data AI ready that works across different scientific domains. And so the way this started was basically me working with Claude Code, giving it our paper and saying, I want to be able to use this framework to make this data AI ready. And so I had started sort of doing experimentations with Claude Code. And so I initially developed a skill file for Claude Code, which is just a markdown file, which has information such as like the five level readiness taxonomy, domain detection rules, things like that. But I quickly realized that if you use something like Cloud Code to do data readiness, you have a major problem with in terms of reproducibility because for every step it's going to go off and write some code. You may not know what it's doing in the background. So it becomes a major problem if you want to later, somebody else, you want to tell them to do the same thing. So we started developing a framework, and the framework has two main parts. One is a domain agnostic uh, pipeline, which has our five stages that we define. And this has functions that work across different scientific domains. So ingest, preprocess, transform, structure, output. And then also, because each domain, you generally have to do some those things I highlighted, the words I highlighted in red, you may have something unique, some functionality that's unique to that domain, like regridding for climate. And you have to use specific tools for like Xarray or XESMF for doing this kind of regridding. So because of that, we have both the sort of the domain agnostic core of the code, and then we have domain specific functionalities that can be used along with the domain agnostic core. And the main idea is that you can run it. Ideally, it would detect what kind of data you're working with. It would compute it would infer what the pipeline, what series of steps it needs to run to make the data AI ready, and then it would start stepping through that process. And in the end, it would output a data card, a metadata.json file, and then ready to train files. And then you could take these and directly push to like a catalog, like Hugging Face, your AI ready data set. So this is the domain agnostic architecture. You have the five pre-processing stages. Each one has some specific functions, and basically at the beginning it detects a full pipeline, which consists of a number of these stringing together, a number of these different functions together. Um, Now we worked on actually creating a full data lifecycle illustration or graphic here to try to understand the full process of given some raw data, how do you go to get to AI ready? And so far, I've just been talking about what we now call ready run, which is these 5 stages: ingest, preprocess, transform, structure, output. But then at some point in discussions with like John Luca Baz and Suren Bana and others, we realized we needed a way to be able to quantitatively assess what's going on with the data. And so originally started um, experimenting with using Adrian, the AI Data Readiness Inspector, to do this, which Adrian actually does like it has 15 different metrics it uses to assess data readiness across, I think, 6 different pillars. Like one of the pillars is fairness, and so other things it checks like completeness, duplicity, outliers, class balance. The issue we had with using Adrian with our types of data sets is that um, a lot of the things that it checks are show very interesting results for like tabular data, a lot like the kind of data you might download off a Hugging Face. So where you have like maybe missing fields or you have duplicate rows or things like that. But for computational data, you generally don't have like missing fields unless you have nans, which um, is not common that you would actually want to train with computational data with nans in it. Um, and you basically shouldn't have any duplicate rows and things like that. So when we were running Adrian on our particular data sets, it wasn't showing like much uh, of interesting results because Adrian is primarily designed to use on tabular type data sets. So we built in some our own feature called Ready Assess, and that has some basic features like completeness, duplicity, outliers, and things like that. But it also has some domain specific type assessments that it can do for each domain that are unique to that domain. So, for example, for like climate data, it can go in and it can check the grid spacing to make sure that the grid spacing is what it should be and that the normalization's right and things like that. Um, so what we've done so far in this is we started developing this and then we took 4 different took 4 different representative projects for training foundation models that each of these has like pre-processing scripts associated that are provided with it. So we can run their pre-processing, we can run ready on the same data set, and then we can take those 2 data sets that come out of there and we can compare them and check for alignment, how well they compare with one another in terms of like Pearson correlation coefficient, mean absolute error, and things like that. And generally we might find bugs or something in the way we were processing it and have to fix them. But generally we could get uh, basically an identical match with using Ready to pre-process the code versus using some bespoke pre-processing pipeline. In addition to that, we had been building on some functionality for working with metadata and Ready, but then we decided to move all the metadata side of things out into a separate code called setgo, and we call this for metadata readiness. And this deals with things like fair compliance, uh, dataset governance, and then we can use setgo to automatically publish the code to like catalogs like Hugging Face or the American Science Cloud, things like that. And it's now all the data card, all that's kind of work is done in setgo, so it'll generate different data cards based on which catalog you're publishing and things like that. We've also integrated in data provenance into this, so it keeps track of everything of how the data is changing. It has timers that knows how long it takes for each of the stages to run and all these kinds of things. So one of the nice things that came out of adding in data provenance is now we could easily benchmark our preprocessing pipeline. So just give you this is demo is a little bit dated, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like. And even though we initially used Claude to start developing the framework, actually now we can run Ready as a skill within Claude, but now Claude is not like going off and writing new code. All it's doing is making calls to our framework. And so that ensures we have a reproducible pipeline, and it outputs like every command it executes, it outputs in a file, a reproducibility script file. So you could completely get uh, out of Claude, and you could rerun that and generate the same identical sequence of steps and files. So I'll go through this one. So this is for just so I'm initiating the skill here, ready within Claude Code, and it says, what do you want to, how can I help you? So I want to say analyze a data set, and um, I'm going to give it just a single netcdf file. Now you can give it a star.nc, or you can give it a directory and that kind of thing to analyze like a bunch of files. But because that may take like an hour or more in parallel, we just do a single file here for the demo. And then it analyzes the current state. So it gives you information about the file, and then it tells you what it's in a clean state, so it's been downloaded, and it tells you what next steps have to happen to make this data AI ready. And then ask if I want to run the full pipeline. And so now I speed up the video by 20x. So this takes on a single file, it takes about 5 minutes, but this is sped up. All right, so it finished now, and it says your data is now level 5 fully AI ready and can be loaded directly into PyTorch TensorFlow. And it gives you, it dumps out like a train, val, test, and a data card here. Although we have now it dumps out a lot more, many more files in the later versions. But then if you go through and you can see like all the different steps it ran, uh, it just goes through all the different things it did to make this data AI ready. Um, all right. And then you can look at the data card. Although now the data card's being done in setgo because we have to fill in more information like licensing and all that kind of thing. So we've taken this ready, and we said, okay, let's take like four representative data sets that are used to train foundation models. So we selected ClimateX, OpenFold, HydroGNN, which is for like large scale training of graph neural networks for material science for atomistics, and XGC1 for fusion. So XGC1 is fusion simulation data, and this is currently being used to train a foundation model for fusion. And these four areas represents different domains of science. They represent, if you look at different modalities, spatiotemporal grids versus sequences and structures versus atomistic graphs and particle meshes. And you can see the file sizes are quite large here in the terabytes, up to 100 terabytes for XGC1. And yeah, lots of samples. So for OpenFold, 250,000 samples, for hydrogen, and 482 million uh, atomistic graphs. So, and then we can take and look at the 5 different pre-processing stages and what specifically it's doing during each stage. Now we can use Ready to analyze these to make the data AI ready. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the interesting things of including provenance is now we can actually get benchmarking information out. So this basically gives the timing, the proportion of timing in the five different stages here. Um, and if you look at this, one of the interesting things is that actually most of the time is being spent in file I/O. And I realized that probably a number of these projects, maybe they didn't consider, some of them didn't seem to consider much about the file I/O performance. But this takes a considerable amount of time because even doing the pre-processing on some of our large scale machines, even with like hundreds of nodes, you may spend sort of hours pre-processing your data to make it AI ready. So largely what this shows is that a lot of on terms of our leadership computing facilities, a lot of the data pre-processing is largely a file I/O problem at this point. If you look at this is Open Catalyst 22 data set with for hydrogen training hydrogen. The LMDB file, the format they store the raw files in is called LMDB, and it's the uh, file I/O performance is horrible. And so you can spend just a significant amount of time versus they actually store the files in AUDIO's binary pack format. So you can see it's a huge difference there. And this probably Climax should have used a different format for storing their files for training because NPZ is not the best in terms of it doesn't support file IO, parallel file IO. And so now we've also we can run Ready in parallel and we can scale it up on our machines. And so this is for like climate sciences, we've scaled this up to I think we've gone up to 200 nodes on Frontier, and we can get basically near linear scaling. Um, so these are highly scalable. And then I just spent some time trying to assess like the parallel file IO issue. And I think one of the big issues is that whether a file format supports parallel random file access um, in terms of its scalability. And so you can see this is NPZ versus ZAR across increasing number of data loader workers. And so there's significant speed ups to be gained. You can see here the LMDB versus HDF5 is huge uh, huge difference in performance, and also the same for these different file formats here. So file format selection is a first order optimization decision for AI readiness pipelines at leadership scale. Um, I'm almost done here. I just wanted to mention that one of the initiatives that we've recently been working on with this is now Ready, Set, Go has become an instrumental part of a larger uh, goal, and that is to create an AI data factory. And the idea of the AI data factory is that we're sort of constantly pushing out, making data sets AI ready, and we're pushing them to like we're sending them to a catalog like Hugging Face, but we have an internal catalog called it's a CCAN catalog out of CERN, and we can publish the data sets, and then users can search for data sets like you would on Hugging Face, but these are more like leadership computing facility data sets, leadership computing data sets. So they're large data sets, but they can search for data that they may want to use to train like a foundation model, and they can download the data and use that. And it's already a lot of the hard work of making the data AI ready has already been done. So, all right. So just some takeaways from my talk today. So many of the pre-processing pipelines for scientific AI are bespoke, undocumented, and unreproducible, consuming like 70 to 80% of project effort before any model development begins. Uh, we needed to come up with a shared vocabulary. And actually, when we published our first paper, actually, our AI magazine was a sort of an extension of our first paper, but which is a conference paper. When I published that paper, somebody found it and sent me an email and said, "We really appreciate your this paper because he was working on a team with different scientists from different domains, and everybody had a different idea of what data readiness meant and that kind of thing. And so it helped them to sort of align um, what they were doing with a shared vocabulary." And then we developed Ready, which operationalizes this IPTSO pre-processing pipeline. And it's an open source domain agnostic framework, and it replaces bespoke pipelines with a unified agent callable readiness infrastructure. We integrated flow step provenance into every pipeline step, and this enables, among other things, fine-grained performance benchmarking, and it tells you where time is actually spent. And we evaluated this across 4 different domains: climate, proteomics, material science, and fusion. And Ready achieves readiness equivalent outputs in all cases. We validated this against domain expert references. And then the provenance data revealed that file IO, not the compute so much, is the dominant bottleneck across all domains. So format selection, so using things like ZAR versus MPZ is a first order optimization decision. And finally, the near ideal parallel scaling on Andy's confirms leadership class readiness. So these are highly scalable and yeah, so we have a tool that can be used, and we've written a second paper, which is under double blind review now, and so once that paper's released, then we're going to push out all the software in the open domain. And I've had quite a few people help along the way, so I want to acknowledge them here, and a few references, but I think that's pretty much all I had. I'll take
Okay.
any questions.
So yeah, so let's first give a big hand to Wes for an excellent talk. We have time for question answers, so please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions.
Hi, Wes. Yeah, thanks so much for that talk. That was really, really interesting. Just a quick question. You showed a lot of interesting metrics, but I was curious, do you have any metrics on sort of the time spent in agnostic tasks versus domain specific tasks? Like, you have it sounds like, and I might have missed it, but it sounds like you have a mix of kind of domain agnostic things that you do and domain specific things. So I was kind of curious, like how much is being done very generically versus, specific to certain domains.
Yeah, very good question. I I didn't break them down that way, but I will say if you look, some of these things like the well, yeah, I don't have it broken down that way, but you can see some steps which were almost like these red, which are like structuring before you do the output. That's a domain agnostic step, and so that's a very inexpensive step versus like regrid is a domain specific step, and parsing MMCIF is domain specific. So some of these stages may consist of both, like encoding MSA may consist of both domain specific and domain agnostic. So that's a good question. It's probably something I should look into. Um, but I don't have it
Yeah,
specifically at this point broken down like that.
no worries. Yeah, thanks. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Uh,
Spiros, uh, and then Raghu. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the great talk. Curious, how even in your experience is this AI readiness metric, right? Why I'm asking this question is sometimes people report that, an AI ready level 5 data set, right, for a model A may actually be quite unready, right? I don't know, maybe only ready level 2 when basically trying to target a different model, even within the same domain, right? So in your experience working with domain scientists, like how even is this AI readiness metric, right? Is it applicable across models or it's something tied specifically to maybe a particular model or something else?
yeah, good question. To be completely honest, I have been moving away from using that sort of categorization scheme for multiple reasons. One of the reasons that you suggest, um, that even though something may say it's AI ready, it may not be. And we experienced that was from our personal experience, people using ready, analyzing it on a code, and then it's saying, oh, this is AI ready when it's not. And so, and then the second thing is there's quite a few different people that have come up with these sort of categorization schemes. And they're all like slightly different, and some of them focus more on the metadata readiness and that kind of thing. And so because of that, although we initially put it in our AI magazine paper, I've pretty much moved away from that and just focused more on the pre-processing, the stages involved, which is a bit less subjective, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question, but let me go at the end of the queue, allow more people to ask questions. Thank you. Mhm.
Raghu and then Luke. Yeah.
Wes, good to hear your voice again after almost 2 decades. Yeah. So, um, one of the a question, my question actually follows what Joe asked. Okay, the domain domain specific versus domain agnostic. I really think to make things work, to make the models work, I think the majority of the majority of the, I guess, readiness will have to come from domain specific, because every domain is going to be so different. The statistics are going to be different. The noise level is going to be different, right? And even specific to the problem, right? So it's just it's just really a comment more than anything else. And also, maybe the real question is this. So a lot of what you just said, right? Pre-processing for training or pre-processing for inference, or both, what kind of pre-processing are you discussing? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rag. Yeah, I agree, and that's something that we realized, and something that was hard to even think about to try to come up with a cross-domain framework. So I think the goals, or what our expectations of what the framework would be or how it could help, have sort of changed over time because, um, like like you said, some of the pre-processing is very much domain specific, and so there's very little that can be done, reused. So because of that, I changed the way the code and some of the
Mhm.
goals. It was sort of changing over time, but um, now you can actually basically have like your pre-processing code that you currently use, and it's sort of like a plugin to Ready. So it's kind of like running it within Ready. And
Mhm.
what that does is it gives you some sort of standardization in terms of timings and uh, standardizes some of the and provides some
Okay.
level of reproducibility. So yeah, that's completely true. And your second question was about whether we were data readiness for what. We were initially mainly focused on pre-processing the data for training like large-scale foundation models.
Mhm.
However, we found that this has applications there's a number of other potential applications. So one is obviously for inference as well.
Mm-hmm.
But another we found is that we do work with digital twins, and
Mm-hmm.
basically you can do the same kind of process. So we have like HPC telemetry data, and we can
Mm-hmm.
use Ready to process it to be able to replay through our digital twin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Wes. Yeah.
Sure.
Luke, or Luke after that, Beth. Yeah.
I think you're muted.
Yeah, Luke, go ahead.
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Luke. Please check.
Would you like to add your question in the chat, Luke?
Yeah, you can do that, and then let's move to Beth.
Great. Okay, yeah, we're not hearing from Luke, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Wes, thank you so much for this. This is super interesting. So, we're looking at this provenance, which is largely performance based, which is interesting. How do you capture, is um, pushing through the same data set through the pipeline with slight changes again a thing, or once you push your data through the pipeline, then it's more fixed, so I guess with these big data sets, yeah, once they're pre-processed, they go through their steps, they're done, and yeah, so how do you handle the change within the processing pipeline, I guess?
Yeah, very good question. We see this as a iterative process, which is why we have all the loops here. But so we don't see it as a one-time thing. I have not yet done this, but we're working on putting in some. We would like to put in some versioning and some control on those things, because measures. There is a potential that you could process this twice and do normalizations twice and get all kinds of problems as far as that goes. So because of what we've done so far, we've mainly been working on running running the data through to make it AI ready, and then validating it against the other bespoke pre-processing data sets. Because of that, we still haven't used this in terms of using it in production, like somebody's actually using it to train a foundation model, but that's sort of the next steps we're going. And I'm sure we're going to find issues that we have to address along those lines. But my thought is probably it's going to be like multiple passes and fixing things, and I'm not sure if it'll ever be just a single pass through.
Yeah, interesting. Well, yeah, and you answered my second question, which is where are you going in the future? And thank you for that. Yeah, no, we're certainly interested in hearing about that experience also. So keep writing.
Yeah. Spiros?
Yeah. So going back to this issue about the file I/O still being the bottleneck, going back to the pipeline, I can see the need why you need to start from files, because that's where all these terabyte data sets are stored in now. So the ingest, the green part of the bar of the ingest seems inevitable. However, I do notice that also your pipelines in the purple part write back to files as well, right? And something perhaps going back a little bit to the file system and storage architecture. At least two of the applications you mentioned are PyTorch based, right? OpenFold and Hydra GNN. A very common format there would be, say, a PyTorch tensor. Native to PyTorch, can be ingested easily. And
Yes.
it can very well be stored, for instance, in a data store, right? In an object store, right? That's, again, adopting perhaps a little bit of the cloud, basically, terminology, where you have things like S3, backing data, and so on. Do you envision perhaps a transition here to a model where you don't need to write back to files, those post-process data, and again, you can ingest directly on native PyTorch tensors? Or, what do you think? How do you think, again, the future looks like there, given again file I/O being this big bottleneck? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, yeah, good question. The XGC1, which probably had in from my evaluation, it probably had the most optimized preprocessing pipeline. They were actually outputting the files as PyTorch. So you can see, and the performance was quite good. So we haven't done this. So one of the next steps is sort of to do this full analysis of the different file formats and all that and thorough, but just some initial look, it looks like these PyTorch, like what you're suggesting, would be a very good approach.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we have done some work here in the context of ICICLE. Again, we can talk more offline, but again, that has been a part of the focus here of the ICICLE team. Anyway, we'd love to talk more offline.
Yeah, and I would say we'd be glad to collaborate on any of these topics.
Sure.
Yeah, very much interested in that.
Yeah, Wes, the final thing I think Luke posted on the chat, I can just read quickly.
Sure.
So he says, how do you envision other domains being able to build on top of your source code release? Would they submit pull requests to update the framework, or is it more inspiration for other domains to build similar framework? He basically works on the ICICLE in the agriculture side, digital agriculture. So he's looking from that angle.
I think I got my mic working now. Can you hear me
Okay,
now?
good.
Good.
Yeah,
All right.
good. Okay.
Yeah, very good question. So when we had originally started Ready, we had sort of a lot of the pre-processing, the domain-specific code in Ready, and I'm trying to move to having that all out so that the Ready itself is just like a domain agnostic core, and then you'd actually you actually have your own sort of plugin for Ready that you can manage yourself. And so that means the actual contributions so yeah, we plan this to be like a fully open source development, and people can make pull requests, but the actual core engine would be, you know, a lot of the development work would be sort of in your own plugin versus in the core engine itself.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But I'm still definitely interested and open to collaborate on the development of the core engine as well.
Yeah, well, when you release it, I'm sure we can give you a lot of feedback. Yeah.
DK, there's one more question from, I think, Vipin.
Yeah, might be go ahead, Raghu. If you don't mind, I have to switch to another call.
Okay.
You can just be the moderator, post
Okay.
Bipin question, and then.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot again. I think in advance I'll drop off, but please
Okay.
finish.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Wes, Vipin, who's also a co-PI of the ICICLE AI Institute, is asking the following question: does the large overhead with I/O suggest that the storage architecture needs to be changed? Is this unique to scientific computing, or does it hold for AI companies like Google, Meta, etc.?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would guess this would have broader implications across industry as well. Although I would guess that on the industry side, they've probably done maybe a better job on trying to understand this. I know that there's like this is a bit dated, but there was like TF.data, which was a lot of work on trying to optimize data for AI. So I would guess they're probably further ahead than the scientific community.
Okay. I think we're almost at the hour. Any other quick question for Wes?
Really quick, Raghu. I just want to do a quick plug. Wes will be joining, some other ICICLers at PERC for a BOF on AI readiness.
Okay.
So if folks are around for PERC, he'll be there, and we can continue the conversations.
Wonderful.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Thank you again, Wes. It was great having you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank
If
you.
there are no other questions, then let's thank Wes again, for a very nice talk. And And like some of you know, I've known Ness for more than 25 years. So he even took my class. He made the mistake of taking my class. Okay. See you guys. That's good to
Thank
see you.
you.
Okay, good to
Thank
see you.
you.
Thanks.
And you
Bye.
Bye.